Yeah, so I'm Hector Taylor. I'm the founder of Otto, and we do lead generation for the mid-market. And I'm going to explain the 7 reasons why mid-sized companies struggle with inbound marketing, inbound lead generation. And I'm going to do it in terms of left brain and right brain. So I dare say you're sort of familiar with this concept of right brain is responsible for your creative thinking, for your kind of emotive stuff, with marketing, it's got a big message, impact, vision, that sort of thing. And your left brain is responsible for process-driven stuff, for analysis, for detail, which is becoming more and more important for marketing, to be honest. So I'd admit that I am very much a right brain person. Now, we're all a bit of both, but most of us, as marketers, like most people, are more comfortable with one side than the other. So there's one side like creative stuff, things like that, I kind of get lost in, lose track of time. If I do too much detail stuff, analysis, software type driven stuff, I get a headache. So most people are more comfortable with one or the other. So while you're here, I may as well test you. Put your hands up if you're more comfortable with right brain activity. Okay, so I'd say that's about a third. I don't know if the other people just put your hands up if you're more comfortable with left brain activity, detail analysis. That's funny actually. There's more people with kind of left brain comfort than right brain comfort here. So I suppose why I got your attention as well, because this is about mid-sized companies. Who actually works for a mid-sized company here? Put your hands up if you work for a mid-sized company. And I describe a mid-sized company as pretty broad, a turnover between 5 million and 500 million. Yeah? Okay, cool, good. Okay, so the first reason why mid-sized companies struggle with inbound marketing is that you've got to understand the whole end-to-end process. Now, the word process is a giveaway. This is a bit more left brain than right brain. And it's key to understand each bit of the process and how they fit together, because if you miss one bit, then basically the whole thing is completely undermined and you get far less value than you're expecting. So what I'll do is I'll go through the process, and a lot of what I say today you probably heard and understand already, and that's again why I'm kind of using this right brain, left brain, because it makes you relate to it better, and you'll kind of, I suppose, you'll get the concept a bit more. So the whole end-to-end process, the first stage is awareness, which I spelled wrong. I missed an S. I knew I should have got somebody to check the slides. And basically, the awareness stage, so you've got thousands and thousands of prospects out there, and they don't know who you are, they've never heard of you, and basically they're typing away trying to solve their business challenges. And what you want to do when they're typing away, asking them questions, is you want to use SEO, blogging, social, etc., for your name to come up, and your answer to their questions to come up. So that's the first stage to get them to become aware of your services and come to your site. And the next, no, I didn't. I didn't spell these all wrong. Basically, the spacing's changed when I've given the slides into there. And the N is done there somewhere. That explains it. Okay, so then you get to the consideratio stage, the consideration stage, which you've got these thousands of people, and they've come to your site, and the next stage is you've got to turn them into leads. So you need to have downloadable content that they're interested in, so they will give you their contact details to download this content, and that's how you turn them into leads, into contacts. And then once you do that, you can actively market to them, and you can use whatever channel you want to market to them. Obviously email is going to be the main one, but you're basically marketing to them so they download more content, whether it be white papers, they attend webinars, they watch videos, etc., etc. So yeah, and the whole time they're considering whether your product is right for their business challenge, and that's the consideration phase. And as you nurture them along through the consideration phase, so like I said, you're sending them more and more information, you're getting them to come back to your site, you're educating them about your solution, and educating them about how they solve their problem. And as you nurture them, and they download more information, you ask them more questions. So you ask them important questions like, what's your postcode? Because if they're miles and miles away, like the other end of the country, servicing that client's going to be very expensive and very difficult. Key one you're asking them is, what's your company turnover? Because if their company's too small to afford your product, you're never going to sell them anything. No matter how much they love your product, how much they love yours, you're never going to be able to sell them something. So all this key qualifying information you're getting little by little as they download more content and they get educated, and they're, like I said, they're considering your stuff. And decision is spelled right, it's lucky it's a shorter word. So then they move on to the decision stage. So you've got thousands of people visit and they register, tens of people get nurtured along and move along your sales funnel. And then they get to this decision stage. So say, for instance, you've got 10 people who are ready for the decision stage. So they've indicated that their time frame's right, they're interested in buying, and they're ready to engage with your salespeople. And this is when you reach out to them by telephone, and that's easy to do because you've also asked for their mobile number so you can contact them, and you'll probably be able to set it up by email because they've agreed to speak to you. But you also find that of those 10, some will qualify themselves out. So, like I said, there'll be some that just haven't got the budget, and there's no point speaking to them. There's no point wasting expensive resource and expensive sales resource phoning them up. So what you're left with is 7 sales qualified leads. So those are the MQLs. You phone them up, they become sales qualified leads. And then they go to the delight stage. And the delight stage is basically delight for you and for them because they buy your products, they solve their business problem, and you start to make some revenue. And so that's basically, and then the last stage of delight is you carry on marketing to them, you get them to buy more of your products, and you make a lot more money because obviously returning customers are a lot more profitable than getting new customers all the time. So that's the end-to-end process, and the key thing to remember on it is it's a process. It's kind of left brain, and where we see the obvious faults or the common faults in this is say, for instance, so you do a lot of social, you get a lot of visitors to your site, but you haven't got a mechanism to turn them into leads, into contacts. So what you do is all you have, they come to your site and you have contact us. And people don't make snap decisions anymore, particularly in B2B. They want to be educated and they want to educate themselves, and they don't want to speak to a salesperson straight away. So you get all these visitors, but they're not becoming leads, or you get all these leads where they actually maybe download one thing, but then you haven't got a sophisticated nurture train. So what you do is you use, and we see our big clients do this as well. They'll have really sophisticated marketing automation systems like Marketo and Eloqua. And they're just using like MailChimp, and they're just basically shouting messages at these people, and they're not listening to the response. There's no dialogue. They're not getting more qualifying information. So what they end up doing is they'll have a load of people at the top of the sales funnel, and they'll just get internal sales people to phone them up and disrupt their day-to-day lives. They're not ready to buy, and it's expensive. So yeah, that's the whole process. And like I said, it's a left brain exercise. But if you get it right, and this is a good point because sophisticated inbound marketing is common with the big enterprise companies these days. It was sort of invented about 10 years ago, and for the last 5 years it's become very common in big enterprise companies, but a lot of them don't do it very well. But for mid-sized companies, it's sort of not the next new thing, but it's a real opportunity for mid-sized companies if they do it well to get a real march on their competition. So it's a big opportunity for mid-sized companies, for you guys. And if you want, we've got an infographic on our website which kind of explains this process and the kind of lead generation engine, but it also gives you some hints about how to do it better, and then the key metrics, which is the key bit, the key metrics between each stage, which makes sure that stage is moving on to the next stage. So if you want to go to auto-nation.com, you can download that infographic. So the second reason why mid-sized companies struggle with inbound lead generation is that you've got to understand personas and customer journeys. And again, I'm sure you've all heard of these phrases. Personas, basically you create fictional typical clients, and you might have 2 or 3 different types of typical client, And you basically, you really do a kind of extensive study of like what kind of education they had, where they live, what their day-to-day life is, what their working life is, what their needs are, etc., etc. You really basically get into their head, and the key about it, the reason why you do it, is because by going through this exercise of getting into their head, you look at your marketing and what you're doing, your activity, from their point of view, rather than from your point of view. And basically, their point of view is, they don't know much about the market, they don't know much about the solutions out there, and they just want to solve their business challenge. And your point of view is, you know everything about the market, you pretty much know everything about the solutions out there and the competition, etc., and you just want to sell your product. So you need to get into their headspace, and that's what creating personas does. It's a right brain activity. It takes imagination and empathy to imagine, you know, what these people are doing and what challenges they've got, etc. Customer journeys, kind of on the surface, sounds a bit like kind of a right brain, easy thing to imagine. You know, the people, they're looking for the problem, they become aware of you, like I said, they consider whether it's right for their challenge, and then they make a decision based on things like trust, cost, ease of use, reliability, these sort of things. And that seems quite a simple concept and a kind of right brain concept. But the problem is, in the digital world, it becomes really, really complicated. So in the digital world, in a kind of mature, if you're doing this well, mature B2B inbound program, before a lead becomes a marketing qualified lead, so it gets to the bottom of the funnel, there's going to be 12 digital interactions, and that's per person. So you imagine if you've got a big DMU of 5 or 10 people, say 10 people, that's 120 digital interactions in that customer journey. And that's making my pitiful left brain hurt just thinking about it. So it's really complicated, and it's a left brain exercise. And it's complex, and it's hard for mid-sized companies with smaller marketing teams to have that kind of, one, the knowledge and the understanding of what these things are about, but two, the resource, the people within their team with the left brain and the right brain skills to be able to work together to make these things happen and get them. But they are the bedrock of inbound marketing, so you need to get your head around them. So the third reason is, to do inbound marketing properly, you've got to understand SEO. Now, I would say SEO is mainly left brain, because you've got things, I'm sure you've heard of words like keywords, long tail keywords. Once you get your head around them, you're kind of very quickly moving into things like difficulty scores and PPC and things like that. And then Google algorithms, anything with an algorithm in it is bound to be left brain. And so you've got to get your head around that. I suppose the challenge after that is that you've got to, once you understand that, you've got to write this content, these blogs and stuff, incorporating all those keywords, with low difficulty scores, etc. You've got to, which are enabling you to make the most of the Google algorithms. And the real difficulty is it's got to be interesting and compelling to actually get people to read it, to draw to your site. So, again, SEO, it's difficult. And the other problem is that with the content, if you're a high growth mid-sized company, you're going for like 20-25% growth per year, you should be producing between 2 and 4 blogs a week. So there's a lot of content you're knocking out, and it takes a lot of resource. I mean, a show of hands, who produces, of the mid-sized companies here, who produces 1 blog a week? Who produces 2 blogs a week? Who produces 3 blogs a week? Who produces 4 blogs a week? So you're down into, well done you guys for producing 2 or 3, but 1 blog a week, I'm sure there's a lot of you guys putting out a blog a month, etc. So it's tough, and no one's going to find them unless you get the SEO element right within them. So the fourth reason is that creating a content strategy is a lot different from creating content. So creating content, it's kind of obvious this is a right brain activity. So it's, you're trying to say interesting, appealing stuff, you're trying to use arresting images to get people's attention. It's a right brain stuff, right brain thing. Creating a content strategy is totally different. So a content strategy, and I don't know how many of you guys, mid-market companies are familiar with content strategies, but basically it's a plan for a 6 to 12 month plan to how you're going to leverage all your content through all the different channels and all the different mediums to make it accessible to your personas, your buyers, in whatever format they want. And it's a really complex thing. And we see, typically with big companies with lots of people, they'll have like a head of content who's gone from being an editor, a content writer, etc., works on the key messaging and stuff, and they say to them, right, can you give us a content strategy? But they're right-brain people. They don't understand all the mechanisms and the marketing automation and stuff and all the technical stuff, all the way this thing's going to be leveraged, which is the big part of the strategy. And they basically they can't do it. They're just sort of floundering. They just don't know what they're doing. So from a mid-market perspective, you need basically the left-brain people to put kind of a skeleton, a structure on your content strategy. And then your right-brain people to put the flesh on that skeleton, to put the flesh on that plan. And for mid-sized companies, and then we see this with big clients all the time, they don't have the knowledge to put them together, the big clients, because they do have the actual people, so most of the time. But for mid-market, I imagine you really struggle to have those kind of skills internally, and then the knowledge to get them to work effectively internally. The fifth reason is that you've got to get social media. So I'm sure all you millennials out there will get social media, and there's older enthusiasts as well who I'm sure do it enthusiastically. The problem with social media is that getting it, and I suppose again going back to this right brain left brain idea, it sounds like a right brain idea because you're communicating, you're kind of creating emotional connection, you're being spontaneous, you're getting people's attention, you're building communities, etc. All feels very kind of right brainish. The problem is that in a B2B context, the only reason you do social media is to create leads. It's about lead generation. That's your job, lead generation. So unless you understand how social media fits with your sales funnel, how it's integrated into your sales funnel, or how it's going to drive leads, you're wasting your time. And you can, as mid-market companies, you can afford to hire millennials, but perhaps they'll work for nothing these days. But you won't get any value from them unless they understand the bigger process that they're working in, and they're understanding that the social stuff is there to drive people to your downloadable contacts so they become leads, so they're in the sales funnel, and then communicate with the people and keep them going back to your sales funnel to download more stuff and to be nurtured. So it's difficult to again, that bit, the integration bit, again, is left brain, it's complicated, and it's tough to get right. The sixth reason why mid-sized companies struggle with inbound lead generation is that you've got to be able to continually optimize your website. So imagine you own a shop and you refurbish the shop and you make it look really trendy and cool and the new product lines, etc. And it looks really, really good and it's drawing lots of customers in. And then you leave that shop exactly how it is for the next 2 years. So you replenish the stock, but you just replenish it exactly how it was when you first refurbed it. So you're not reacting to any trends, any new products, what people are buying more of, what they're buying less of. Guess what? 2 years later, you're going to be having a closing down sale. But that's typically what a B2B website does. People spend, and I dare say if you're B2B marketers out there, you've had this 3 or 4 months of creating a new website, lots of right brain activity, making it look good, big messages, all that sort of stuff. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort. You put it there, and then it sits for the next 2 years, basically, without hardly any changes on it. And then you think, oh, we better refresh the website. You put another 3 or 4 months of effort in. So basically you get this kind of impact, where you get an impact there from the first redesign, then nothing. And then an impact there, and then an impact there. And each time it's a huge amount of effort to redesign the website and to refresh it, etc. And the thing about inbound marketing is that to do it properly, you've got to be testing, A/B testing, what downloads are working, what aren't. You've got to create new downloads all the time. So again, high growth mid-sized company, you're looking at between 4 and well, probably on average between 4 and 8 new bits of pillar content every year. So pillar content is the downloadable content. So I've got 5 minutes left. So basically, you've got so you've got to do a lot of this, a lot of adapting your website, and it's the small type stuff, it's the technical type stuff, it's new landing pages, new thank you pages, it's all that sort of small stuff. But the trouble is that typically the design agency that you have gone to get that stuff done, they're right-brainers. Their aim was to make it really good, really strong messaging, really strong branding. They don't really care about all the iterative stuff. So the new philosophy with web design is a thing called growth-driven design, and basically it says you do this incrementally. So you, rather than making big changes in every 2 years, you make lots of little changes and you're testing everything as you go along. So basically you're looking at the evidence, how your customers are reacting to things, and then you're changing it so they react better. And it's a constant process, and it's quite conceptual. And we have a guide, the auto guide to growth-driven design, which again you can get on automation.com. And it's worth a read, because when you read it, you'll think, oh yeah, this makes sense, and this is a better way of doing it. But yeah, it's quite new and quite fresh. So the last reason why it's a challenge to do inbound marketing, inbound lead generation, is you need to be able to use a marketing automation platform. And as you can see from this Chief Martech diagram of marketing automation platforms, there are hundreds of them. And there's lots of them designed specifically for the mid-market. The problem is, going back to the right brain, left brain stuff, they're really, really complex to run. They're just, it's hard, and we see a lot of our big clients who really struggle to run them. And also for a mid-market company, you're unlikely to have someone with real good technical knowledge in your marketing team. So what you end up with is, and the big companies do this as well, someone from IT. But there's someone from IT, they're not measured on how many leads they bring in. They'll just sort of set the system up to run as a system, it runs effectively. They're not looking at the actual real reasons that you're doing it, which is to drive leads and how it integrates with everything else. And also they answer to the to the IT director and not the marketing director, and it becomes a big problem. So again, it's software system, it's very left brain, and it's challenging. It's interesting as well that the kind of technology landscape, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this Chief Martech thing, they bring it out every year, for the last 3 or 4 years, and every year the size of this doubles. And that bit, the marketing automation bit, basically that's just that little bit there. And so for large companies, mid-sized companies, there's so much new technology. Marketing is becoming more and more data-driven, more and more technology-driven, more and more kind of left-brain-driven. And yeah, it's getting more and more complex and more difficult to get your head around what works and what's not. So just to recap, the 7 reasons why mid-sized companies struggle with inbound marketing is you've got to understand the whole end-to-end process, and that's mostly left brain. You have to understand personas and customer journeys. Personas, more right brain, customer journeys, more left brain. You've got to understand SEO, you've got the left brain to understand all the technical bits, and then you need a bit of right brain to actually write something interesting using all the technical bits. Creating content strategy is a lot different from creating content. Again, right brain content strategy, mainly left brain. You need to get social media, so you need to get it in a B2B context. You need to know how to integrate it within your sales funnel, and that's more left brain. You need to be able to continually optimize your website. That's a technical thing. We're talking about landing pages, A/B testing, things like that, more left brain. And you need to be able to use a marketing automation platform, which I would say is completely left brain. So there's 7 reasons, and I did say how you would conquer those 7 challenges, basically. And the simple answer is to outsource it to an agency that does the whole end-to-end process. The agencies have got a team of experts in each little bit, and then they work together, and they know the whole process, and they know the end goal, which is lead generation, and they do it for you. And I kind of, because I come from a technical background, I thought this phrase, inbound marketing as a service, put your hands up if you work in the technology sector. So there's a good few of you. So all you guys will have heard of software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. They come up with as a services all the time. basically, if you think of kind of inbound marketing as a service or IMaaS, it kind of gives you that idea, and it basically means you outsource the whole thing to someone else rather than hiring and training people in-house or getting people to do little bits of it. You outsource it all as one big package to someone else, and that's basically that's the answer. And just to very quickly wrap up, if you want this whole presentation as an ebook with all the kind of words in it, you can go to autonation.com and download it there. If you want to read the Auto Guide to Growth-Driven Design, again, Autonation. And then finally, the other thing I mentioned is this infographic. So if you're doing it yourself and you want tips on how to, the key metrics and how to do each bit better, then that's it. Okay, thank you very much.